We welcome in Tommy Bowden, former Clemson head coach, college coach for 32 years, Alabama, Auburn, Florida State, West Virginia, Kentucky, Duke, Tulane, and Clemson, son of Bobby Bowden, brother of Terry Bowden. Is there any chance that anybody in this family never had a shot at playing or coaching football?
Yeah, it's amazing because my father really didn't pressure us into going to coaching or really steer us that way. We all made our decisions. I have an older brother that did not go into coaching, and none of the nephews, my father's got 20-some grandkids, a bunch of nephews. None of the nephews went into coaching. I
got to ask you this first off. Obviously, Dabo Sweeney, I'm going to say, is a good friend of you, coached underneath you. Going into this game tomorrow night, what kind of pressure do you think he's feeling?
Well, to be honest with you, he's not feeling a whole bunch of pressure. I'm sure, headlines not to say he doesn't want to win the game and won't put a lot of effort into it, but, they're sitting there third in the nation. He's got a long contract. They've got a new facility. He's got a good staff. There's nothing wrong with going, 11-1 if he loses the game. So the only pressure he's under would be self-imposed, in the fact that he wants to win the game so bad himself. He's going to put pressure on himself. But, he's not the kind of pressure, say, for example, Mac Brown at Texas, is under other coaches that have to be successful this year.
Clemson picked to win the ACC. Obviously, the biggest game is tomorrow night between Clemson and Florida State. Would it shock you if neither one of those two teams played here in Charlotte for the ACC championship come December?
Yeah, one of those. It's not a strong division. The divisions they're in right now, the Atlantic Division, there's two strong teams. Those two. The rest of them are really. There's really a lot of separation between those two teams. Over another division, you got Miami and Virginia Tech kind of battling it out. But no, one of those two teams will play in the championship game.
You go back, you look at Clemson. Both Clemson and Florida State both struggled against Boston College. In my opinion, Clemson struggled a little bit more than Florida State did. Do you think, looking at these two teams, Florida State is stronger right now, or is it really coming down to the wire tomorrow night?
I think it's coming down to the wire. When you look at the games, Florida State has not played a team as good as Georgia. Clemson's played a real good team in Georgia. Florida State's played a good team in Maryland and demolished them, just destroyed their program. Clemson's played 3 conference games. None of the conference teams they played had a winning record. Florida State's played 3 conference games. 2 of their teams they played, and Maryland has winning records. So, the schedules are just about equal. Neither one has been exceptionally challenging. That's why the statistics they both got gaudy statistics, but the competition hasn't been real good. And so I just think this is really, really, when you just break everything down, Jameis Winston, Todd Boyd. Todd's got experience. Jameis got the better statistics. Jameis got the better statistics. It looks like a dead heat going into the game tomorrow night.
I agree with you. It is a dead heat. You talk about, obviously, the experience going into Death Valley there tomorrow night. Jameis Winston is a freshman. What is that crowd going to do to Jameis Winston in Death Valley?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question. He doesn't play like a freshman. And how much that baseball experience he's got to do with his additional composure, nobody knows. You kind of reflect back. His first game now is on national TV Monday night, professional stadium up there in Pittsburgh, against a team that had 8 starters coming back there, the 17th in the nation. Now it's going to be a lot more loud and there's a lot more on the line Saturday night than there was in that first game. But for a true freshman, and if you remember, a lot of his throws were downfield throws. He just didn't throw little bubble screens and things like that to give him confidence. Jimbo put the ball in his hands and he put the ball downfield. So he gives some indications that he's going to respond well. But that's a loud place. I'm a coach here 9 years, and we've had a couple of Florida State teams come in at number 1 in the nation. One of them came at number 3 in the nation and lost. So it's going to be anxious to see how well he responds to the pressure of the game, and then the noise level is going to be exceptional.
How loud do you think it's going to be down there exactly, since you've coached there?
They're going for the record. I think the record's Kansas City Chiefs at 137 decibels, and they're trying hard to break it now. We played Miami there one year the year after Miami won the national championship. It was a triple overtime game. And at that particular time, it might have opened the college record or came close to breaking the college record. And this will be a couple of notches higher. It's going to be a really, really high high decibel level. The bleachers are really steep, and they're on top of you, the second deck. They'll squeeze 85,000 in, probably an 81,000 seat stadium.
We're talking with Tommy Bowden, former Clemson head coach. You talked about that going for the record. Is there somebody standing there with like a decibel machine, like getting pumped ready, like if it explodes that he's on the horn with the Guinness World of Records right away?
There'll be somebody from Guinness there. I don't know where he's going to be standing. I don't know what the official reading, where you have to be on the field, or where you're supposed to be up in the stands, or in the press. I don't know where you're supposed to be, but it's been publicized so heavily. And, this game's been circled for about 6 months for both teams, hoping they both get there undefeated. And it looks like they have. And so they've been gearing to break this record. They've been advertising. They've been putting all those numbers up there. So I don't know who the guy is and where he's going to stand, but he'll have that little machine down there, and they'll be regulating.
Jameis Winston has Rashad Green and Kenny Shaw. Taj Boyd really realistically only has Sammy Watkins. If you take Sammy Watkins out of that game tomorrow, say FSU is able to shut him down, what happens to that offense?
Well, I think he's going to be a huge factor, and he's probably the best single athlete on the field. He's a tailback playing wide receiver, and that offense gets him the ball in speed sweeps, some at tailback and bubble screens. They can get him the ball. They're going to get him a lot of touches because he's the most dangerous guy for both teams on the field. But if you take him out of the equation, they're an average. I'll say average. They've got more good athletes, but he's a difference maker. He's the difference between a 9-3 and an 11-1 team.
Say Florida State does take Sammy Watkins out. Who do you think will help Taj Boyd out and beat up the Seminoles?
Well, the Sharon Peake, their next wide receiver, is out. He's out for the year, so their second guy's gone. Martavius Bryant is probably the next receiver. He doesn't have great speed. He's a big, tall drink, about 6'4", so. But they don't have the depth that Florida State has right now. Florida State's got Kenny Shaw. They got Rashad Green, and that Kelvin Benjamin's his name at 6'5" or 6'6", 230. They've got a better squad from top to bottom. Though Florida State, Clemson has the best receiver, Sammy Watkins. Florida State's got better depth and a little more experience, a little more productivity.
Now that you're no longer part of Clemson, where does the family make you go in this game?
I've got to work on Saturday. I'll probably miss the game. I'm up in Charlotte now, getting ready to do an ACC show tomorrow, which will be live, and then I fly home Saturday night, so I'll miss it. Now, my father probably watched in Tallahassee. If he doesn't sleep through the thing, he goes to bed about 6, and then we'll start till after 8, so he can stay awake. He'll probably catch the first half, but I'll be traveling and might catch the last quarter of my flight all time.
They're bringing Bobby Bowden, your dad, back to Florida State next weekend. Big reunion. They're trying to get a bunch of players back for this big reunion. In your opinion, how many guys do you think comes back? On that list, you got Danny Cannell, you have Deion Sanders, you have who else do you have? You got tons of Chris Winkie.
Yeah, they're going to have 2 games where they come back. I think they're expecting a larger crowd on this game. And I don't know if my father's listening to this, but I've been told by some of the people putting it on they've got a record number of players coming back. So I think it'll be a good crowd of players. They've had attendance problems, for the last few years. But I think as far as this particular game with the players' attendance, I think it's going to be exceptional, just from what I've heard. Most of my family, I've got a pretty big extended family, are going to be there. They call me, and of course I've got to work. I won't be able to be there, but most of my brothers and sisters and grandchildren will all be at the game.
Going into those past games you talk, obviously it used to be called the Bowden Bowl when Dad would come here to Death Valley or you would go to Tallahassee and Doe Campbell Stadium and you guys would play each other. Just what was it like before those games? And I'm even going to say after those games. How much did you and Pops talk about that going into it and then after it?
I remember the very first year we played, which was the first year in the history of one A football that a father-son played each other. We actually had to start doing media requests, radio interviews 2 weeks before the game, which is kind of unusual because, I don't know, we might play NC State before Florida State, and I'm sitting there doing Florida State interviews, which is very uncomfortable. but the demand was so great for that first game. And the fact that Florida State was also number one in the nation and won the national championship that year, it added more interest to the game. And you know, there was so much of a family aspect to it before the game. But as you get close to the game, I know from my aspect, you started thinking about X's and O's and, boy, how are you going to try to generate some offense against this great defense? How are you going to slow their offense down? Problems in the kicking game, where you're going to turn the ball over. You know, you start thinking about things like that and away from the family aspect. And, of course, and after the game, you know, he gets on the plane, flies back, and I go talk to my team. He talks to his, and we go separate ways. So really don't get to see each other at all after the game. That 5 or 6 minutes before the game, we sit out there and talk in the middle of the field. That's the only time we get together.
32 years of college football coaching experience. What would it take you, or what would it take for you to come back?
You know, I've had chances to go back. I've talked to ADs or presidents in the SEC and the Big 12 and Conference USA and the Big East a couple of years ago when they had it, and nothing just really piqued my interest. You never like to say never. I enjoy what I'm doing here, and I do some Christian speaking in the off season, or football off season. And but you know, if the right situation called, and there's a comfort zone between the administration and myself, and I could see myself doing it, you know, and I could see myself doing this. I'm the type of guy I think if God wants me to do it, He'll make it pretty obvious, and it'll be an obvious choice.
Two-part question for you. How often does the phone ring when coaching jobs come open? And is there one coaching job out there right now, you know in your head, you don't have to say what it is, but if it came open, would you take it?
Yeah, there's probably more than one that if it came open that I would be interested in. And, you know, when I first got out of it, I was called a lot more. The more you say no, the less marketable you become. I've been out now for about 4 years, and I've said no enough where, you know, they're going to stop calling. And I understand that. So I don't get called nearly as much now as I did my first and second year out and even into my third year.
All right, I'm going to ask you straightforward, what team is representing in Carolina here for the ACC championship game out of these two going into the game tomorrow, Florida State or Clemson?
You know, I picked Clemson by 3 because of 2 things. Three things. Taj Boyd, home field advantage, and an experienced kicker. Both field goal kickers are really good. Florida State hadn't missed this year. Clemson has 5 out of 6, but he's got all their kicking records. So I'm going to pick Clemson by 3 points simply because home field, Taj Boyd, and the kicker. You know, those 3 things.
We do a thing on the show here called Last Call. It's basically a shout out to anything going on. It doesn't have to involve Clemson. What would your last call be?
A shout out to my last call?
Yes.
Probably to my wife to have dinner ready when I got home Saturday night.
That's good. Tommy Bowden, we look forward. Hopefully we'll see you here in Charlotte for the ACC championship game. My FSU Seminoles that will be there, and maybe it'll be Clemson for you. Look forward to seeing you down the road, though.